What is going on, everybody? Let me do a quick audio check. Can somebody let me know that you can hear me okay? Say, hey, Jesse, we can hear you just fine. I'm going to do a quick audio check on my end. There we go. Looks like everything's good. Fantastic. All right, there we go. Don't forget, folks, put your comments and your questions in the comments section. I do monitor the feed on my laptop from time to time. Like I said, oh, Jen, fantastic. Jen, thank you so much. Welcome to day 2 of the 3-day of the Blacklight, 3 days of Halloween Blacklight Painting Challenge. Today is day 2. For those of you that joined in yesterday, we're just going to be continuing where we left off. If you have not seen part 1 yet, there's a link. I linked the video from yesterday in the description of this video. Okay, so you can simply go over and click on that link and it'll take you right over to that session. If you haven't registered yet for the event where you would have been able to download the stencils that we're going to be using today, I'm going to be teaching you how to draw it freehand. But for those of you that want the stencils, when you register, the thank you page that comes right after you register, that has the stencils. Let me readjust my chair here, my creaky, squeaky chair that I've had for a few years now. Anyway, so once you register, the thank you page has that information in there. You'll also find that in the description of yesterday's video. All right, fantastic. Let's say hello to some people. Cheryl, how's it going? Pauline, fantastic. Thank you so much. Hey, Martha. Good, Martha. Diane. And Marissa's back. What's happening, Marissa? Susan, Crafting Around, is back. Hey, Susan. Merle, O'Neill, and Erica. What's happening, Erica? Yep, we're going to have a good time today. Patricia, how's it going? All right, cool. We got a few people on the feed already. We're about a minute away before the official start time. Let me take a look over at my dashboard really quickly. All right, cool. Looks like everything's working fine. So fantastic. 1 minute to the official start time. I'm going to get right into the details, all the supplies that we're going to be using today. So essentially today is mostly about sketching everything onto the painting. We're also going to be doing a little bit of painting, and we're going to be painting for about, or we're going to be creating for about an hour and a half, approximately. Okay, maybe a little less, maybe a little bit more. It just really depends on how far along we get in this hour and a half. Now, remember, you can, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, you can back the video up. You can pause it. If you miss something that I said, if I'm going too quickly, you can always back it up, okay? The only thing I can't do is speed things up. If you're in a hurry and you feel like I'm taking too long, this process takes time, so there's no rushing it, okay? Maybe you'd be better off watching the recorded session, okay? So again, no speeding, no going too fast for me. I can slow it down a little bit, but I can't speed it up very much, okay? Also, if you don't have the time to complete the drawings or sketching part of it today, everything is being recorded and will be available immediately after the live session is over, okay? Patricia, oh no, you got kicked off for a moment, but it looks like you're back, so fantastic. You got it, Carla, how are you? Elsa and Bruno, how are you? Elsa from San Bruno. Look like Elsa and Bruno. All right, Elsa from San Bruno, how are you, Elsa? Hi, Don. What's up, Rose? And then let's see. Looks like I missed somebody down here. Robin Davis Fry from Daytona Beach, Florida. Yeah, folks, whenever you're joining in, please let me know where you're hanging out from. Where are you joining me from? Okay. But all right, today we're going to be using some of our paints. Primarily, we're going to be drawing the piece out. We're going to be sketching everything that you see on the original piece. We're going to be sketching all of that out. Now, I'm going to be using some light pieces of chalk, real basic chalk to sketch mine in. Okay, let me adjust the screen size over here so you guys have a better view of everything on the screen. There we go, everything on my canvas. So basic chalk is what I'm going to be using. You could use chalk pencils. You could use watercolored pencils. The idea is to use something light that'll stand out against the background, and then you can easily remove in case you need to make a correction. For example, let's say I'm using so I got some basic yellow chalk right here, just basic chalk that you would see in any basic chalk set. Let's say I've drawn something out. I don't like the way it looks. I can easily fix that. Paper towel, a little bit of water, a little tiny bit of water. Okay, all of this is dry already from yesterday. I can just go in here and it disappears. Right, nice and easy to remove, make corrections, etc. It's why I really like to use chalk. You could use pencil, of course. You could also use like a light charcoal pencil. As long as you're able to easily remove it is one of the important things, but also that you can see it against the background. If you're, for example, trying to draw everything in blue pencil, dark blue pencil, that's going to be a lot harder to see. So that's why I use chalk or chalk pencils. I often will use pastel chalk pencils. I'm not going to be using those today because the lines are really skinny and you may have a hard time seeing what I'm doing. So we're going to sketch everything out. We are going to get into a little bit of painting. I'm going to start on the haunted house over on the right-hand side. Now, for those of you that have the stencils, it's pretty basic. There are 4 pieces to the stencils. You have 2 parts to the tree. Okay, when you downloaded these, there's 2 parts to the tree. Hopefully you guys already kind of are versed on how to transfer a stencil over to a painting. You could use carbon copy paper. White carbon copy paper would work best for this. Okay, you have the pumpkins and the tombstone. Okay, then you've also got the haunted house. So there's 4 pages to the stencils. Again, I'm not going to be using the stencils. Those stencils are for you to use and put on however you'd like or whatever method you know of how to do that. But I'm going to be teaching you guys how to draw. Okay, so here we go. We're going to get right into it because we do have a lot to do. We're going to jump right in. Okay, again, in between steps. If you guys joined me yesterday, you guys know in between steps, I go and look at your comments, answer questions, etc., etc. Be sure to say hello. Tell me where you're joining us from, and let's get moving. We got the haunted house here over on the right. Okay, my yellow chalk. All right, so over here somewhere is the edge. That's what I'm going to start with. The edge on the right-hand side. Now, the main thing with the haunted house is you don't want to go too high. Okay, when I draw it out, I'm going to draw everything but that little smokestack on top, that little chimney. Okay, I'm going to draw everything but that. I'll probably leave that for last. But here we go. Over on the right-hand side, I'm going to turn my easel towards me a little bit so I got a better angle and I don't lose the perspective on it. I take a little step back. I look over here, and I just come right up. I want to leave enough space. Over to the right-hand side, I got a little tiny cross over there. Don't know if you guys can see it. A little tiny cross from the top of a tombstone. You don't have to add that, of course, up to you. But here's the side of my house on my 16 by 20 inch canvas. This is probably about 2 inches high. Okay, from right there, I'm going to go out a little bit. Just pop out to the right just a tad. I'll give you guys a close-up here in a bit. Again, if it feels like I'm going too quickly, you can pause it. You can back up the live video both on Facebook and on YouTube. Also, don't forget, tomorrow is the 3rd and last day to our 3 days of Halloween event. All right, here we go. Come up. So I'm right here right now. Okay. Just comes up maybe 1.5 inches. Maybe I need to bring this in a little bit. Has more of an angle. So I'm just going to erase that. Like I said, real easy to erase. The only thing is before you go back over it with the chalk, you need to make sure it's nice and dry. So here we go. A little more of an angle there. And we're not looking for perfect. Your haunted house is going to look a little different than mine. All good. It's going to look different if you're painting in a group. Everybody's going to have, if you're doing this by hand anyway, everybody's going to have something a little bit different, and that's A-okay. All right? No problem with that. Carrie Hintz Steckler, how's it going from Wisconsin? In Wisconsin. Let's see who else. Hi, Lisa. What's happening, Lisa? Cynthia Sama. Colorado, Marissa, huh? Fantastic. Very cool. Sherry Edwards, good evening. Joining you from Ontario, Canada. Awesome, Sherry. All right, here we go. Next step. This little tiny part right there. real small. Okay. Now you don't want to go too high on your house. So I'm hoping that you're all using something like chalk so it's easy to make corrections. It allows you to be able to draw and go through all of this and with much less stress because you can just correct it. Okay. That little roof line right there has a little bit of a curve. Maybe needs to be a little more curved. So let me go ahead and erase this. Also, the other thing is with chalk, I'm going to be able to paint right over my chalk lines. Yeah, the chalk sometimes interferes a little bit with the paint, just a little bit though, but it's minimal and you can easily fix that. Deanna Pineku Parsons, aloha. Aloha to you. Thank you for joining today. All right, right here at the top. Okay, back over the top of that roof. Okay, nice and easy, folks. Again, don't worry about making it exactly like mine. Yours is going to look a little different. Okay, Darlene, the stencils. If you go to yesterday's, did you register already first off? Because once you register in the thank you, as soon as you register, you get a quick thank you. And in that thank you letter, there's a link that has those stencils. Okay, so here you go. Front part of the roof goes back a little bit. Now these, if you were to draw a line, you don't need to, but you could draw a line across. And they're going to connect. Okay. Come down a little bit. Okay. Don't be afraid to erase. If you have to make corrections, make your corrections. No problem. Some people hate to erase. You've already seen me erase a couple of times. No worries. Drawing, creating is about going along. You make corrections. You make adjustments. It's all good. So right here, that's where we are right now. Okay, now we're going to curve forward and down, but at a nice little angle. That's probably a little too long, so let me correct that. See how easy it is to erase? Now, let me see. We're pretty good. We're pretty close. Now, when I come down, I'll show you guys. Let me just continue with my drawing. Is that right there? Okay. Now here, watch this. I could come down straight like this. Let me take a look at my house. Okay. I came straight down right here, right? That's this wall right there. Now I can come over and add the deck and everything else. I can go like this, bring that back down, back. It's almost like a combination rectangle and maybe a triangle. Triangle here at the top. You get the idea. Okay. This line, when we're going to paint over all of that, right? So we don't worry about that line for now. Then right here in the front, a little too high. Let me lower that. A little too tall. So there we go. Okay, of course, that is that right there. Now watch this. This little line right here disappears. All gone. Okay. Easy, simple little steps. We break things down to little tiny components. Okay. Now, those two little lines right there, I'm going to go ahead and add them. It's not important. We can always add those with the paint later. Two little posts. Okay. I take a little step back. I look at my house. Is it what I want? This one's tilting slightly back. It's okay. I could bring it back. I can make adjustments and correct it if I want, but I like it. I think it looks okay. Looks fine. Okay. I could bring this down a little bit more. Actually, I'll fix this. Again, this is why I love creating with chalk. Drawing with chalk. I just drop that so it's a little less angled upwards. Okay, I can also fix this. Make it more straight down. Okay. All right. We're going to add the windows now. Got a window right here. Just a rectangle. Okay. Got Got a little window above it, right directly above it. Got another window over here. These are just a bunch of little rectangles. After I'm done with the house here, I'm going to take a moment. I'm going to look at your questions, look at your comments. I'm going to give you guys about a minute before I move on to the next step. One more window back here. Okay. And we can't forget our chimney. So just a nice rectangle like this. Okay. And then at the top, we have almost like a little triangle, but you cut off the very top. Okay, let me give you guys a close-up. Okay, you guys see that right there? For those of you that need to catch up, you can pause right there, or, you know, back it up if you need to in a little bit. Okay. All right. You guys got about a minute. Let me look at your comments. That's right, Susan. The house tilting gives it a little bit of character. That's exactly right. It is a spooky house. It's a haunted mansion, and it could tilt whichever way it wants, right? It is. That's how it works with haunted houses. But all right, everyone. I'm looking at the comments. If you guys have any questions for me, put them down in that comment section so I can see what you guys got for me. All right. Here we go. Next step. You guys have no questions for me, so we're going to move on to that next step. We're going to add in our tree. Actually, no, we're going to come over here and we're going to add the we're going to go easier first. We're going to add the tombstone. That tombstone is pretty basic. Comes up at an angle, right? You guys notice it's slightly tilted from the edge of my 16 by 20 inch canvas. This is probably about 3.5, 4 inches up. So I could kind of just gauge it like this. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's going to come across at a slight angle over the top, like that. Okay. It's going to slight little angle like this. Whoops, and then that's going to come straight down. Let me raise this up. Come straight in like this. Okay. Let me take a closer look. Make sure that we look good. So that's pretty easy. Don't need to add the RIP just yet. We're going to paint all that on top of the gray later. But the next step, probably the trickiest part of this whole drawing part, is we're going to go ahead and add in the tree. Now I'm going to turn my canvas, the original, forward towards me a bit, or angled towards me a little so I have a better view. Now this tree, okay, the top of the tree where all the roots are, this part right here sits about right in here. The head, what looks like a head, looks like a body, right? If you guys haven't noticed, it looks like you've got a body right here. You got the arms sticking out, hands, head's about in here, and you got these, the wild hair. It looks like somebody, like Medusa or something, with hair all floating up into the sky. We're actually going to start at the base. Okay, and if the pumpkins are going to be right here, that's where that big pumpkin is going to be. The base of my tree is somewhere about right in here, and it's at a slight angle. So what I'm going to do first, I'm just going to draw my angle out. The visual for the angle. This would be about where the center of my tree would sit. Okay, I want to get that visual first. I got the, I can look at it and go, okay, that's about where the center of the tree is going to be. I went a little too high here on the head, so let me go ahead and fix that. Now I'm going to turn this from here. I'm going to turn it forward slightly at an angle so it comes up and then turns tilts forward, kind of like what the head does, just a little bit. Okay. Now, from the base of my tree, this part right here, I'm not going to add in the roots or anything like that. I'm just going to start right about right here from the corner here. I'm going to work my way up, drawing the front part of my tree right now. Just going to kind of curve it in, goes back up over the hill, curves in, goes up. Okay. So again, I'm just basically following along that line right in there. Before I continue with anything else, I'm going to start over here on the back side. Goes up like this, curves in, back out, goes like that. I'm going to go and erase this line that I put in at the beginning. I'm going to go ahead and remove that. Let's get to that because we don't need it anymore. Okay. Take a little step back. I'm going to look at my drawing from a distance. Does it look good? Is it where I want it? Looks about right. Okay. This part right here is that part right in there. Now I'm not going to add these the branches for the arms just yet. I'm just going to come forward. I'm going to stick with the center of the tree for now. Branches and everything else can be added later. So goes like this, goes up to that branch, but then it curves back in, goes up. I'm going to give you guys a close-up here in just a second for those of you that are drawing freehand with me. Now I know today's or the whole 3-day challenge is a little bit more complex than a lot of the paintings you see out there, a lot of the sessions. There's lots of little steps involved with this, and it can be a little intimidating for lots of people. So kudos to all of you that maybe felt a little bit intimidated by it, but decided to show up anyway. Okay, pushing your abilities is where you learn. Lots of people, enjoy creating, but they like to stick with the easy stuff or easier stuff. They don't want to stress out, which is perfectly fine. Everybody gets to choose how they want to create. But when you're trying to learn, where you really want to extend your abilities and push past them, you want to take on difficult challenges. Okay, take on difficult paintings, difficult drawings, etc. And this certainly fits the bill. Okay, it's a little bit more difficult than some of the stuff you see out there with some of the online classes. Okay, so all right. So again, we got the basic shape of that tree in place. I'm going to go ahead and start adding the branches. Starting right here. This one that sticks out and goes over to the right. It's going to come up. I keep it nice and skinny. Go into that arm. I can make this a little bit thicker down here at the base. Okay. Over on the right-hand side, here we go. Goes out, drops down. Okay. Something like that. I can make it a little thicker at the where it connects to the base. Okay, now the tendrils on top, the hair on top. Goes up, goes over. There's one. Now I'm going to switch colors really quickly so you guys can see when I do this through the moon. I'm going to go over to purple really quickly. When we're using chalk, we want to be able to see it. Right? And so this purple works better against the dark background. So there's that branch that goes up on top there. Here's the other side. Going up like that. Comes over. And then actually it doesn't stick out. That's okay. Then last one is the one right over here. Goes up. Okay. What's happening, Josh? How are you, buddy? Are you drawing or what are you doing? You painting with us today? Josh is watching over there on YouTube. Majority of the people are watching on Facebook, but Josh is over on YouTube. How old are you, Josh? Can't remember. Okay, so now let's add some of the roots down here. We're going to start with this one right there. Comes over the top, comes down. It's going to connect down here somewhere. Okay, here in the front, goes down. It's going to connect. It's going to get lost behind that pumpkin at some point. It's going to add a few more here. Comes down. Not looking for perfect. Okay. For now, that's all we really need. Okay, did a bunch of roots. Okay, so you guys have about 1 minute to get all caught up with that. Then we move on to that next step. Remember to always take a step back, look at your painting from a distance, look at your progress. It's easy to look at and then decide if you need to make adjustments. Sometimes it helps to simply look away. Maybe you can walk off, go get a drink, go get a snack, come back and look at it again. And it's easier to look at something with fresh eyes. You'll much more quickly pick up differences between what you're making in the original. When I walked into my studio before we started the session today, the very first thing that popped out is that my background, and I think I mentioned it yesterday, but it was much more obvious today. The background is a lot darker here than it is on that one. So at that moment, I had to decide, do I want to lighten up that background before I continue, or do I leave it? Because you can add another layer of lighter color back there and lighten everything up. You can change it. But I like what I have, so I continued. But you always want to do that. Take a little step back, look at it from a distance. It does help to walk away and come back to it. All right? Anyway, let's go with those. Let's go with the pumpkins. Deb Clark, no worries. I understand. I know it can be a little rough to find the time. Art most definitely is about self-care. There's so many benefits to creating art that I hope all of you have at least a little time during the week to do a little bit, whether it's just a quick sketch or a simple little painting, or maybe you work with, you knit, or you work with wood, etc. You sculpt. I hope you're all finding a little time to create in your week. Okay, but here we go. We're going to start with the big pumpkin right here. Yesterday I laid out the shape underneath. Go like this. Just drawing the general shape. Okay, how big should it be? What's the general shape it should have? All that gets decided right now. Okay. Little pumpkin next to it, little buddy. Starts like this, comes over, goes up, over the top. Let me take a step back. Look at everything. One thing I am going to do right now is I'm going to add a layer of white paint that I'm going to use as a base and I'm just using craft paint in this case. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. I'm using this craft paint, Anita's craft paint, for the base. And I'm going to grab my number 10 filbert. the one with the rounded head, rounded edge, right? Just makes it easier, as I explained yesterday, to paint on the inside of rounded objects. It has other uses, but I can go like this. Because of the curved head, it's easy to stay inside my lines. Easier. And I could paint right over those chalk lines as well. Later on, when we add some of the orange paint and the yellow paint over this, we're not going to have to contend with that really dark blue background. That's why we're doing this right now. You don't have to do this. You can paint over the blue background straight with the orange and the yellow, but that's going to take a lot more coats to get a really nice bright orange or yellow like on that original over there. Okay, so it can be done, just can be a little bit harder. I mentioned yesterday that there are different ways to produce the same thing, different approaches to creating producing similar results. Now in here, once I've painted around everything, I'm going to take my brush and I'm just going to kind of brush in the general direction of the shape of my pumpkins, right? They have this curved shape. So from the top, I just go like this, curve. I'm already creating the shape of the pumpkins with this underlayer. I'll do the same thing to this one. Nice and easy. Like with everything else in this, if you're doing this by hand, so you're going to end up with bigger pumpkins, smaller pumpkins, thick pumpkins, skinny pumpkins. It's all okay. What's happening, Tina? Good, Tina. I loved your painting from earlier. Your progress. Tina is in my art membership, and she was sharing her painting, her progress from. She joined us yesterday with the first part of this, and she sent me her painting. It's looking pretty cool. She had already sketched everything out. But anyway, really good job, Tina. Looking forward to seeing what it looks like when you're all done. You got it, Deb. No worries. I know you like to paint, so when you can. Some people sometimes will, and I know it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do. Easier said than done. They actually, they'll schedule almost like a doctor's appointment. They'll schedule their me time, their art time. They'll put it on the calendar and they'll treat it like it's a doctor's appointment. It is a little bit of self-care, as I've already mentioned. But again, I understand that everybody has different schedules, and it's a lot harder for some people than it is for others. So, hopefully you're all finding some time in your busy day. But all right, so there's that layer of paint. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to start painting, adding a layer of gray paint to my tombstone. Nothing fancy. I'm going to take a little bit of black, a little bit of white. Maybe I'll add a touch of blue. We'll see. Okay. I'm going to take, I think I'm going to do this with my 1-inch flat brush. Okay, but I'm going to grab, let's grab some white paint. I've already got some on that plate. I'm going to stick with my craft paint. That's okay. I'm going to grab some of my Mars black. Just going to come over here and add a little to my plate here. Don't need a lot of black. The darker the color, the less of it you need when you're mixing. You want to slowly. Here's what I'm going to do. So I got some white right here. Whenever I'm mixing a color, I'll take a little bit of the dark color first and mix them together like this. Okay, now that's a lot. That's way too light, so then I take a little bit more of the dark color. I work my way slowly till I find the color that I want. Once I have the color that I want, then I worry about the quantity. Do I have enough to cover the entire area that I need it for? Okay. Still a little bit too gray. Okay. And again, the first base doesn't always have to be the exact color that I'm going to end up with. I can slowly work my way to that. And that tombstone is going to need at least a couple of layers, more than likely 3 layers. So main thing right now, oh, you know what? I'm also going to sketch in those tombstones in the background. Okay, that's not going to take very long. I'm actually going to go through that process pretty quickly. Okay, there we go. We're getting closer to the color that I want. Okay, a little bit more black. So again, first you focus on the color, and then you focus on the quantity. At least that's how I typically will approach it. And sometimes, especially when you're first beginning to paint, you will make a lot more than what you need. You end up wasting a lot more paint towards the beginning of your learning experience, your learning process, beginning of your journey. But as you get better at it, you start to get better at gauging how much you're going to need. So here we go. So if you notice, there's a little tiny sliver of the edge that you can see of the tombstone on the right-hand side. It's up to you if you want to include that or not. You don't have to. Your tombstone can be wide enough to cover all of that. But once, that's where I'll start. I'll start over on the edge like that. And here we go. It can be a little streaky. Doesn't have to be all the exact same color. When I mixed my color together, I left it nice and swirly on the plate. In other words, on my plate where I made the mixture, I can see a lot of some different shades of gray in there. Okay, different values of my color. So when I apply it to the tombstone, it's going to give me these little streaks like this. Probably too many, but that's all right. I can work them out. On the edges, I'm using the skinny part of my brush. Okay. There we go. All right. There's that. While this is drying, I'm going to go ahead and start adding some of the tombstones. Okay, we can always fix the edges. You can see a little bit of my chalk lines on top. Okay, later on I'll correct that. If at the very end of my painting session, when I'm all done with this, I see some chalk lines on the edges, once the painting is completely dry, I can come in with a paper towel, lightly damp. Painting has to be completely dry though. I'll go through and wipe those off and come right off. I'm talking about these little lines around the edges where I didn't go all the way out with the paint here around my pumpkin. So that's normal. I'm going to start adding some tombstones here. I'm going to start with like this little guy right there, little rectangle. Okay. Got that little circle one or curved one, curved at the top anyway. Slightly at an angle. They're on a hill. That one right there. They don't all have to be facing the same direction. They can be crooked and uneven. Okay. Now, these tombstones have shadows. We'll add those. We don't have to sketch those out. We'll add those tomorrow. Little cross, too big. Now for my cross or some of these smaller things, I'd be better off using, let me grab one of my charcoal pencils. my pastel chalk pencils. Okay, these guys right here. Smaller detail. Oops, I was actually dipped some of my knuckle in the paint here. You guys are gonna have a little bit of a hard time seeing this cross because of how skinny it is, how small my lines are, but I'll give you a close up. Okay. Remember, you guys can always, where am I? Right here. Really hard to see. You guys can always pause this. Okay. It's really light. There's a little cross right there. We'll have another one up here. We got this guy right here. Has a base, Tombstone red, just like a basic base, like one of these guys. And then it comes up with a cross. Okay, let me show you. Has a cross, and then you're going to circle that cross. Let's bring this out a little bit more. Okay, then we're going to do a little circle in here. Okay, something like that. Okay, let's see. Oh, this one has a cross that I missed. Let's see, where else? I'm going to come over here. Right in there. Going right up on top on the edge. I use my finger. I press it up against the canvas. As long as this is all dry, I put my finger and it stabilizes my hand. Again, I'm working through these pretty fast. I know. We got this big cross right there. Actually, I'm gonna erase this in here. Put my big cross in first, and then we'll see what kind of room we got afterwards. Okay, so on that big cross, I start. Let me see if I can make this lighter. Like that. And then cross part. Okay, we got one right here. Remember to always take a little step back. Look at your handiwork from a distance. Now there's going to be shadows for those of you that are going to be adding shadows like these. Right in here, right? So if you notice there's lots of empty spaces, if you're planning on adding those shadows, don't worry about it too much. Wait till you add shadows in and then decide if you need more tombstones or, if you need to fill that in. You can always do that later. Okay? So, all right, 30 seconds, 1 minute, and then we move on to the next step. And that is, we're going to start to put the base down for that tree. Actually, we're going to start with the house. We're going to put a base of black down for that house. You guys haven't yet. You plan on putting in some of the neon stuff. You haven't picked these up yet. There's a local art store near you. You can pick these up. This is from Folk Art, but there's different brands out there. Deco Art has them. Get some of these neon paints that glow under black light. Okay. Hobby Lobby, Michaels. Pretty much any art store will pick them up. Even places like Walmart has these. All right. All right, guys. Let me look at your questions or comments. Yes, Gloria, absolutely. Day 3 is when we add the neon paint. Now, let's say tomorrow you guys come over. I mean, there's going to be other details that we're going to be adding also. We're not just at tomorrow. The last part of tomorrow's session is where we add the neon paints. We're going to be doing other steps like refining and adding some minor details in there. Not minor details, some nice details in there, fine details. But yes, the neon paint is added tomorrow. Okay. But if you, let's say tomorrow you come over and we start painting and you don't have the neon stuff, you don't have to add it tomorrow. You can always pick that stuff up during the week and then could just remember where I added it. All you can do is paint right over the areas that you want to glow. Pretty basic. Okay. All right, Tina, sounds good. Have a good one. Yeah, Deb, this is a lot of fun. This is the fun part of the year for me. I mean, it's always fun, but the fall is fantastic. But all right, here we go. I'm going to take some paint, and we're going to start adding the base colors to the haunted house, to the tree. Now I've got some, again, I'm using some Liquitex paint. I'm actually going to mix a little bit of Liquitex paint with some of my Flow Artist Loft paint, soft body acrylic paint. They're kind of similar in consistencies, but I only do that because they both have slightly different consistency that kind of gives me an in-between flowy, and it's almost like a medium flow. It's still nice and flowy. Okay, so I've got a bunch of black on my plate here, probably more than I'll need. But I'm going to take my brush here. I'm using my flat brush, and I might have to switch it over to a smaller brush in a second. I dip it into my water cup. I bring that water over to my plate. I do that a couple times. And then here we go. All right. I'm going to start with the haunted house, like I said. And I'll do the big parts with this brush first, and then I'll come back with a smaller brush to get any of the little tiny areas that I missed. Now, you want to be careful. You don't go past your edges. So you see my pencil, my sketch line is really obvious here because I'm playing it safe. It's really easy to go past it. Now, normally when I'm doing something like this, I sit right in front of the canvas, right? I'm right in front of it, not over at an angle. I'm further out like this, so it makes it a little harder for me to control my brush strokes. So I got to be a little extra careful when I do it this way. So here at the bottom, I'm just going to go right over that hill. Now, depending on the type of paint that you're using, yours might be a little bit transparent, meaning that you can see some of that background, that blue background bleeding through. Just remember, most of the time with acrylic paint, we need at least 2 coats to cover everything. Sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 4. It just really depends. So don't worry too much if you're trying to cover everything as best as you can. But if it's a little transparent, a little opaque, you can always change that later. I mean, you'll fix that later. Don't stress out sitting in one spot trying to make everything even. As I mentioned yesterday, you're just going to be moving paint around and maybe create a little frustration for yourself. Okay, so let me take a little step back. I actually managed to do everything with, other than the top, with my little 1/2-inch brush. So I'm going to switch really quickly. I've got a little number 2 flat brush. Okay, real nice. This is one of my Princeton brushes. Really skinny, has a really skinny edge up over the top. I'm going to grab this guy, dip it into my paint, and I'm going to come up here. Little chimney top. And then these guys right here, my little posts in here. Okay. Now I painted right over my chalk lines there. I can make corrections later when I come back and do a second layer, but any chalk that's left over, like you see around the edges, if any of that's left over when I'm done, again, once everything's dry, it just wipes right off. Okay, so I'm not worried about covering up every single bit of chalk that you can see on the paint. And again, folks, for any of you that maybe aren't following the Painting with Jesse page, I am looking to do something with Day of the Dead, with the Day of the Dead piece sometime mid-October. So if you guys want to keep an eye out for that, make sure you guys are following the page so you don't miss out. Okay? It'll be something like a 2-day challenge or something like that. Kind of similar to this, not quite as intricate. So if you guys are interested, make sure you're following the page. So Lisa, can you hi Leah, can you elaborate a little bit when you mean use the chalk pencil for the entire design? So everything that you see on here, the tree, the pumpkins, the tombstones, the one in the front, the ones on the hill, the house, I think I already said the house. It's all sketched in with chalk. I did it with chalk, just basic chalk. Okay, most of it with basic chalk, and then I used a chalk pencil for the little small stuff. Okay, for the smaller stuff, because it gives me a little, better detail with a little tiny point. So yeah, you can sketch everything out with this chalk. What's nice about it is you can make corrections. You can just come right up and erase with the slightly damp, really lightly damp cloth. You wipe it off, and you can erase. Chalk pencils have an eraser. You can erase with these. Okay, it just makes it a lot easier to make corrections. Okay, hopefully that made sense. But if it didn't, just elaborate on the question, and I'll be happy to explain it some more. You got it, Barbara. My pleasure. Hope you enjoy. Thank you, Leah. Hey, Stephanie, what's going on? All right. So we have a layer of paint on the house. Let's go to the tree. All this is drying. We're going to add one more layer to that at least. Actually, it'll be good with one more layer. Always remember, in between steps, when you're painting, in between steps, the brushes that you're not using, they sit in water, right? The bristles sit in water. You don't want those to dry out on you. It'll ruin your brushes, especially if they're nicer brushes. You don't want to ruin them. I'm switching over to my 1/2-inch flat. I dip my brush in a little bit of water, just the tips of the bristles, and then I grab a little bit of paint. Again, I got a nice flowy type of paint sitting there, Liquitex combined with a little bit of my Artist Loft soft body paint. I mean, it just makes it a little easier to paint with. Some other paint, you have to add more water. It just depends on what it is you're trying to do. So what I'm doing now is adding the same thing I did to the house. I kind of come in here and add a little paint. Normally I'll work from the top down. I'll go from one side to the other and from top down, but depends on where you're sitting with relation to your painting. Also, all those little tiny branches take a little more concentration, so I could start with those. Probably smarter thing to do would be to start with those, simply because I don't have to worry about putting my hand in paint down here. When I'm doing those branches, I don't have to worry I might accidentally smear something down here. But it's okay. Either approach is fine. Like I mentioned yesterday, the trick is trying out a whole bunch of different stuff and seeing what works for you. That's the name of the game. Some people are going to tell you, oh, no, it has to be done this way. It has to absolutely be done this way. Absolutely. No other way to do it. But the reality is that there are a bunch of different ways. You have to find what works for you. Technically, some things are done one way, but that doesn't mean that technically is right for you. Okay. All right. I'm using the skinny part of my brush. And I'm just using this to get the base part done. The base of these branches, which are a little thicker. Get those in first. Once I've got those, I can switch over to my number 2 little flat brush. You guys ever want a good set of brushes that don't break the bank? The Princeton brand has some really nice ones. Okay, and they've got all kinds of different types, but Princeton is a really good brand of brushes. All right, here we go. Now I can use this brush, my little 2 flat here. It's really skinny when you look at it from the top to start making these little tiny branches. And I don't have to follow along exactly where I've got my chalk lines. I can decide to go above them or around them as I'm going through and painting. I go with whatever makes sense. For example, I've got this arm that ends right here, or this branch that ends right here. I could go a little further instead. I can decide I want to take this a little further out. And again, I'm not worried about those chalk lines. Those will come off nice and easily later. Now watch what I'm doing. My hand isn't floating freehand right here. I could try to do it like that, but my hand is just floating in the air. It's a little trickier to do. To stabilize my hand, I take my pinky here and I just place it anywhere on the canvas that's dry. And now I'm able to easily draw little skinny lines. Also, once I commit to drawing a line, painting in a line, I move with a little bit of flow. I just start and I don't stop. Okay? If you go too slowly, and slowly is kind of relative, everybody has a different, speed. But if you go too slowly, usually your hand tends to shake a little bit more. So once you commit, you just go for it. Okay, and it does help, almost like it builds a little bit of confidence, and it also stabilizes your hand. Okay, the one up on top, this one up in here. Now, let's say that I was to accidentally run my finger across something that's wet and I smear it across the canvas. As long as everything's wet, as long as it's still wet, let's say I smeared across the top of the tree here. I got a little bit of black paint out here somewhere. I can take lightly damp cloth and just dab it really, really lightly, and it'll remove it. The sooner you catch that, the much easier it is to do. Sometimes if you don't catch something and it dries out a little bit, that can be a little harder. But even then, most of the time, you can still remove a mistake like that. Okay. Let's come over to this side. I complete this wicked hand over here, this creepy hand on the left-hand side. Whoa. I keep telling everybody, one of these days I'm going to fall with this stool. It's going to make for a funny moment. Got a rickety old stool here. I tighten the screws on it every once in a while, and after about 2-3 weeks, they get loose again. And I got to be careful. All right. Looks about right. Always take a little step back. Look at your handiwork from a distance, like I've already mentioned a couple of times. It gives you a fuller perspective. It gives you, a nice overall look. I've got one tree root over here that I've got to kind of bring down like that. Now, everything on my tree does not have to be perfect right now. I can adjust things and change things as I go. But what I want to make sure of is that right now, the majority of my tree is done. The shape, the branches, they're all pretty much the way, the general shape is done. 95%, 98% of my tree is done, except for maybe going over it again with a second pass of paint. Okay. Hi, Autumn. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hey, Anna. Sounds good. Football night. Got it. All right. So what do we got left? A few things. I'm going to start adding some color into those pumpkins. I'm going to go ahead and make my mixture really quickly. Before I do anything else, I do want to get into a base color. What I would suggest is drawing out, or if you're doing this, the tracers, if you're using the tracers, you want to go ahead and sketch that in now. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and let me see here. I'm going to grab, I can't find my dark brown chalk pencil, so I'm going to do this with red. Otherwise, I'd do this with brown. What I'm going to do before I start putting in orange paint on the face of the pumpkins, I'm just going to draw out. I'm going to put in the eyes. Okay, over here also. I don't know about your pumpkin, your jack-o'-lantern, but my jack-o'-lantern has 2 eyes. My nose. Let's go with the mouth now. Wicked mouth. We can start with the sides. Okay, and I'm just going to come across the bottom here, putting in the ugly, nasty teeth. Back over the top. Okay. That red's going to disappear when I paint over the top of that with the orange. Okay. So there's that. You can take a little, you can pause the screen if you need to. Other one. The eyes are a little different on that one. They're more like triangles, sideways triangles. Go across like this, comes down, goes over. Other side. Maybe he's got a bigger nose. The noses are just basically triangles. Okay. I'm gonna take my hand here. Again, I'm not right in front of the canvas, so from the side here, I'm knocking stuff over here. No, we're good. My hand sits on my table. I put my my drawing hand right on top. Okay. Drawing hand sits on top, like this. Okay, my fingers sit on the table, kind of like this. Drawing hand, right over the top of that, stabilizes my hand that way. Again, we start with the sides. Come over. Okay. There's those faces. Now I don't need to draw in the lines or anything like that at the moment. The lines for the segments, we can add those in later. Okay, but what I do want to do right now is add a layer of that orange paint. What time do we got? All right, we're a little past an hour of paint time. So we got about half an hour before we're all done. Okay. So I had to speed things up a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna grab some. I got a little bit of a yellow orange. This is the CAD yellow deep hue. I'm gonna grab some of this. Let's see. Let's grab another. Should I grab another plate? Yeah, why not? I'm gonna take this guy and move it over to the side. As I mentioned yesterday, I like using plates. They're easy to work with. Let me get some of this orange on here. Okay. I'm going to take some of my CAD. So this one was my CAD orange deep hue. Cadmium yellow deep hue. And this is my cadmium orange now. I'm going to grab a little bit of this. Put it over to the side. You notice I'm not taking the paint and putting it on top here. I'm putting it over to the side. I'm going to create a mixture with these three, with this and some burnt sienna or a brownish. Okay. If you've got yellow, orange, and brown, you don't need to get all fancy with the colors, with all the names I'm using. If you don't have those, it's okay. It's basically yellow, orange, and you've got kind of a rusty brown in this burnt sienna. I'm going to mix those three together, maybe even some bright yellow. We'll see. I'm going to create this color here in the background. I'm going to take my little filbert. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to mix with that. I'm going to mix it with my 1/2-inch brush. Let me clean that up. You guys know to have paper towels handy. Okay. I use paper towels to clean out my brushes. Once I've kind of rinsed them out a bit in my rinse cup, I'll do this. Clean that up. Now, I'm going to start with my yellow-orange color here. Okay, I'm going to grab some of this, bring it over, mix those two together. A little too bright. Okay, now so I have all this paint right here. I took a little bit of it, moved it over to the side. I'm going to grab more yellow now. Get a touch of this burnt sienna. Why'd I move it over to the side? Because I knew this was, if I would have mixed it into here, I would have had too much. I would have had to battle with a lot of this color where I needed less of that to create this. So in other words, I had a big batch of that mixture here, way too much than what I needed. So I grabbed some of it, I moved it over because I did need some of it. I knew I was going to need some of it to create this deeper orange, kind of brownish orange. Okay, and it doesn't have to be completely blended. I like it kind of swirly, and here we go. I will be using a smaller brush here in just a moment. Okay, I got to be careful going around the eyes. It's dangerous to be using such a big brush for this because I could accidentally cover up the details that I sketched out. It's just safer to use a smaller brush. Now, what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to follow the general shape of the pumpkin. So in other words, pumpkin kind of curves, right? So here, especially on the edges, my brush strokes are more curved. Here in the front, especially down here in the center, they're more straight. As I move over to the left, curve it out a bit. I'm already giving my pumpkin some shape. The illusion of shape. Okay, let's switch brushes here for a moment. Switch over to my my little number 5 filter. Going to be able to make it easier to get into all these little tiny areas that tougher with that big brush. Just want to remind you guys that everyone's going to create something different, okay? Don't stress out if your painting isn't looking just like mine. Everything from your choice of colors, if you're using different paints, different brands of paints, slightly different colors, all that makes a difference. If you freehand sketched everything, it's going to look a little different. If you use a different size canvas than me, it might look a little different. All right, little pumpkin, little buddy. Point is to have fun. Don't forget, folks, if you have any questions about anything, let me know. Ask your question. I'll be more than happy to answer. In just a moment after I'm done with this guy here, I'm going to look at the comments, see what you guys got. Now, again, this is the first layer of paint, right, for these pumpkins. We'll come back and do some more detailing, especially tomorrow. We're going to get a little more detail in here, I think, before we're done today to the pumpkins, but this is a good start. Switching brushes, I'm going to grab my number 2 flat. I want to get real close and tight around the teeth on both of the pumpkins, so I'm going to use this little versatile brush for that. Having the right tools makes a difference. If you have decent brushes and decent paint, the results of your paint, your results will be much better and easier to attain. I've been painting for a long time, lots and lots of years, and sometimes so I have a studio at home. Well, I don't have a studio at home. I have a kitchen table where I do this, and then I've got my studio here that I'm painting from. Sometimes I try to have sets of paint duplicates at both places, because oftentimes I paint from home, and sometimes I'll accidentally bring something to the studio, or I'll take something home from the studio, and when I need it, if I'm in a hurry and it's not here, I just go with what I've got. And trust me when I tell you, if I don't have the right tools for the job, I'm going to struggle a little bit. That's how it goes. What's happening, Anna? Let's see. Janet says, can you draw on the eyes after you paint it with the white chalk? Can you draw on the eyes after? Yeah, absolutely. You can paint right over. You can paint right over the chalk. It will interfere a little bit with the paint, but you can work through it. Okay. Depending on your chalk, it can also mix into the paint a little bit, especially when you're working with, if the chalk that you lay down is a dark color, and then you paint over it with a light color, on the edges where the chalk and the paint meet, sometimes they'll blend. Sometimes it creates some really cool effects that actually make your painting look nicer. But other times, the results don't look so nice, and you're going, oh my gosh, how do I get rid of this? You just have to paint over the top of all of that. Okay. Sometimes it takes a couple of coats, 3 coats sometimes, but it can be done. Hi, Ivy. How's it going? Yes, beautiful San Diego. One of my favorite places to visit. About an hour and a half from you. I go down there whenever I can. All right, let's add some yellow to the eyes and the mouth. I'm just going to take some, you know what? Let me grab, I guess I'll just use my, this is my base, and then I'll lighten it up tomorrow. I'm going to use a little bit of the same yellow that I'm using now. Canary yellow is going to work a little bit better, but for my base, this will be okay. Canary yellow or a really bright yellow will be all right. Remember, if you're using neon paint, I've got yellow neon paint covering the eyes of both of these pumpkins. That's what makes them really, really bright like that. This is just the base that we're adding in right now. I know some of you might be going, what the heck? There's a lot of steps in here. Yep. When you want to produce a nice painting, especially something as intricate as this, it takes time. I mean, literally, if you really wanted to. So when I did the original, I think it probably took me, I want to say about, and I'm only guesstimating right now, about 3 hours. But I've been painting a long time, and I've got a routine. But it took me about 3 hours, and I could still have taken more time and added more refinements to it, more detail to it, if I really, really wanted to. Knowing when to stop on a painting. People ask me, well, how do you know when you're done? That really is a personal thing. It depends on you. When you look at it, does it look like it's done? Do you like it? Sometimes you got to step away from it, look at it from a fresh set of eyes the next day, or even 2-3 days later. All right. Okay, so really quickly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add in some color to my tombstones. Now my tombstones, what I'm going to use, that's going to be the last step for today. The last step is going to be that. And maybe putting in another layer on the tombstone. We'll see. But we got about, let's say, 20 minutes left to the session. I want to get that done before tomorrow. So I'm going to take some of my phthalo blue. Okay, I'm going to grab a little bit of this. I'm not going to need a lot. I'm going to take some black. I've already got some on this plate, so we're going to be using that. And let's see here. Yeah, I could. I'm going to grab a little bit of ultramarine blue. I don't remember if I put this on the supplies list. Maybe I didn't. No big deal. It's hard to tell the difference between phthalo blue and ultramarine blue. Ultramarine blue is just a little bit more of a deep, dark, more of a deeper purple. Has more of a purple tint. Okay, but let's see. I'm gonna go back to my 1/2-inch flat brush to do the mix for this. Got to clean it up because it's got orange in it, and I don't want that orange to mix in with my paint. So paper towel. This is how I often will check to make sure that I don't have any more paint on my brush. I'll swirl it around in my rinse cup, and I hold it up. I brush like this on a paper towel, white paper towel, and if there's no paint on the towel here, I know it's good. I mean, there's a little tiny bit, but nowhere near enough to make a difference, so we're going to go with that. Now, a little bit of phthalo blue or ultramarine blue, I bring it over here. Bring some of my phthalo blue. Okay. Now I'm going to grab some black with the same brush. I'm going to bring it over here. Do that a couple times. Now I'm going to doesn't take a lot of black to make a real quick or almost instant difference in my paint color. So dark, deep blue, and it looks almost black. When I hold it up against my canvas, it's almost black. So I just got to mix it. It doesn't have to be that dark. I don't need a lot of it. I won't know for sure until I actually start applying it to my painting. So all I want is close. I think that'll do. So I'm going to do this with my number 5 little filbert. Sorry, Janet, is that what you meant? Was that your question? You know what? Let me take a look at the questions really quick, folks. I want to see if before I continue with those tombstones, let me see if I've missed anybody's questions. I want to make sure So I'm looking at the again, and whenever you guys see me looking down, it's because I'm monitoring the feed on my laptop. And so thank you, Barbara. Really appreciate it. All right. I think I got them all. Okay. You got it, Janet. My pleasure. So here we go. Little number 5 filbert. I'm going to dip my brush, the bristles, in the water. Whenever you dip your brush into the water, you don't want to dip the whole thing into your water cup. This will accumulate water sometimes, especially on the larger brushes. It'll, depending on how far back the bristles go, where they glue into the ferrule, it'll accumulate water in there, or they could. It depends on the brush. And when you start to apply the paint, you'll get large drips come out, and it can cause you problems in your paint. So I'm just going to quickly go through here. Now my tombstones have highlights and things like that. I'm not worried about those right now. I'm not worried about the shadow. Shadow's going to be in a different color. Now, this color isn't super different than what's on the canvas, the hill. If there's not enough of a contrast, I might have to switch it to a different color. But here's the thing. There's enough of a contrast, and then when I add those highlights on top and the shadows, it's going to make a big difference. So even if this moment doesn't look like they're standing out enough against the hill, the highlights are what are going to make everything stand out. Get these guys up on the hill also. So all those little tiny details, like those highlights and stuff, that make a big difference in a painting. Takes a painting from being, nice, to gives it little special touches that make it stand out. Okay, and again, folks, take a look. You can see my chalk lines all around my tombstone, right? I'm not worried about that again. Once I come in and add more details and highlight, tomorrow, once everything's done, all of these will drop away. Even right now, this is all dry. I'll show you guys, kind of give you a little demonstration on that. So let's say I'm done. I'm done with my painting. Paper towel. You want to get a little bit of clean water, right? You don't want water that's too, you don't want to use water in your rinse cup if you can avoid it. Just grab a little bit of clean water. So let's say my tree is done. I got those chalk lines sticking out. Check this out. Just want to make sure that it is dry before I do this, because if I do and it's not dry, I'm going to smear it. So look at that. Those chalk lines are gone. Okay, look at all that. Gone. Okay. I can do that to everything all at once it's all dry. All these in here will disappear. Around the house. Gone. Gone, right? So this is what's really nice about working with chalk. Now, I've still got another layer of paint to do on the house. I think it's a little bit opaque or transparent. I can see, and I can, see some of that color coming through, background color. And I can fix my edges a little bit more. And of course, I got to add in paint to the windows. But you get my point. All of those chalk lines will be gone. Okay, now if you're using watercolored pencils, they work kind of similarly. Basic chalk is the easiest to remove from my experience. Okay, but all right, 5 minutes, everyone. So tomorrow we're going to be adding in all the little details. Now tomorrow we might even actually end up painting longer than an hour and a half. It just depends on how quickly I can move through everything. There are quite a few little details in here, but just to kind of give you guys a rundown of what's going to happen tomorrow. We're going to add more detail to the pumpkins, another couple of layers to darken them up a little bit. We have those lines to add, and we got those stems. We got all this. This is all going to be in yellow first. Actually, we can even start to add that now. Let me go ahead and add we got a little bit of time. So let's see here. What you want to do is, hold on one second. Let me grab my yellow from out of here. So you want a nice bright yellow. Even though this is covered up in some of the neon color, you want some nice bright yellow as your base. And then you're going to use a little skinny brush. You could use one of the flat brushes. A lot of people will opt, when they're going to do little tiny lines like that, they kind of automatically will go to a little skinny brush like one of these guys. Okay. While that will work, sometimes it's better to use one of those flat square brushes. Okay, watch, you'll see what I'm talking about here in a moment. Hi, Sarah. Yeah, no worries. So the moon itself doesn't have any glow on it yet. Okay, I do have some glow in the dark paint that I might add at the end of the session tomorrow. So glow in the dark is different from fluorescent or neon paint. The fluorescent neon paints that you saw me use, these guys here, they're basically the same thing, fluorescent or neon. These glow under black light, okay? There is glow in the dark paint that glows in the dark. Those will also reflect under black light, but black light or neon or fluorescent paints do not glow in the dark. So, but glow in the dark paint is really, really opaque, and you could apply it. I can come over here and apply it right over the tree, and it's going to impact the finish on my branches a little bit, but I can always redo that, go over those branches in the area where I apply that glow paint to clean those up. But around the moon, all this is two things. I used phthalo blue and primary blue mixture with a little tiny bit of white as I worked my way out. If I'm remembering correctly, I did use a little tiny bit of white. It depends on how bright or how light your colors that you're using are out of the bottle or whatever it is that you're using. But I also did apply some of my blue neon. Okay. Before I did anything to the background, before I did anything to the tree or the house yesterday, I did apply some coats of the neon around the moon. Now, what that does, and I don't know that you'll see it right now, but it will glow. Okay, see down here, I'm flashing my light on the hill. The hill does not have any glow in the dark stuff on or neon stuff. But when I do this on the sky, it's really nice and it glows. It actually glows quite a bit. It's hard to see in the with all the bright lights in the room, but under black light, this will really, really glow. Okay, I added more here than I did on the original, just for fun. Okay, now you can see the eyes and the house, all that stuff glows around there. But I hope that made sense. Okay, let me know if that made sense. If not, I can clarify some more. My little flat brush, I'm going to dip it in my water. I'm going to grab some of this yellow here. Again, the yellow down there, a lot of it has some of the neon paint, yellow paint. We're going to add that tomorrow. I'm grabbing water with my brush. I dip the bristles in it, bring it over. I don't need a lot of this paint, but I'm going to start adding some of these highlights down here. And all I'm going to do is go back and forth to begin with. Little skinny lines. It's layers of these lines. I work my way back and forth. I'm creating a glow in here, right? The jack-o'-lanterns. These are jack-o'-lanterns that are lit up from the inside, and they're causing a glow in front of them. You can also use this to create some of these weeds that are kind of sticking out, the grasses in front of them. You can also give the ground a little bit of shape with this. Don't forget, folks, anything that you missed in here, or if you didn't get a chance to view yesterday's session, you can go back and watch it. I tagged the link in the description of this video. And go right back to that and watch it. Now, the recorded sessions, including tomorrow's, all three of them are going to be available until Sunday midnight. Now, I might extend it a little bit. I've had a couple of people tell me, hey, we're out of town. We really want to paint it. So I'm going to likely extend it a little bit, maybe a few days, but get in there and do those as soon as you can, because they are going to go away. They're going to go sit in my private group membership vault library. Okay, so again, and there's an overlap of paint in here. I just keep doing this back and forth. Eventually, I start building up a lot of density. Okay. Will the palette knife work for this part of it? Janet, is that what you're asking for this? A palette knife? It could, absolutely. If you've got a little bit of experience with your palette knives, yeah. you could do that. Or if you don't have a brush this tiny or whatever, you can. Over here, I'm going to grab a little bit of green. Okay, let's see here. Actually, I'm going to take a little bit of my blue. A little bit of blue. Watch this. For those of you that know, you guys probably already know what I'm doing. I'm just taking, I'm going to create a little bit of a dark green in here, mixing dark blue and some yellow. A little bit darker. I'm going to make some grasses here. I'm also going to take a little bit of my burnt sienna. Just making some dark green grasses, a dark green color. Okay, a little bit of water. I'm going to come over here and add some of these weeds that you see coming up over the top behind the tombstone. Tomorrow we'll add some highlights so they glow a little bit more. Again, I'll give you guys a close-up here in just a moment. Okay. Now I could also take some of this yellow here. The roots are on the tree. Here, I'm gonna remove the chalk so you guys can see better what I'm doing with the yellow around those roots. So pumpkins are glowing, right? They're emanating light. Now you guys you're gonna lose the roots a little bit here. They're gonna be harder to see because that chalk's gone now. But I can see them, and as I add, all I'm gonna do is with this yellow, that same yellow that I'm putting down at the base. I'm just gonna go ahead and just kind of outline the roots a bit. Again, there's neon paint that I go over the top of this tomorrow, so everything glows. Now tomorrow when we start, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn all the lights off in here, except for maybe a couple of them. I don't know that I can turn them all off and still have power, but so you guys get a good look as to how much glow in the dark paint I've got on this original painting. If you guys don't have a black light, you can order one from Amazon. They're cheap, $6, $5, $4. It just depends on what kind you get. I also have a big lamp that I use for some of my events, my in-person events, because I do in-person. I don't do so many anymore. I'm pretty caught up with my membership. But my in-person events, paint party events, I sometimes we do glow under black light stuff. When you add these highlights in yellow, you really define where those roots are. Okay, and that's just to give you guys an idea. You got it, Janet. Yeah, but take a look. Okay. I could also come in here, since I'm working with the yellow now, I could add it into the edge on my tombstone. But I'm not going to do that right now. Give me a sec. Let me show you something real quick. On the original, there's a lighter border around the edge here. It's not so much that it's a border. It's like how do I explain it? If you imagine this is all flat, the edges angle out a little bit. That's kind of the idea behind that, right? So it's reflecting light differently. And then, of course, I added some highlight there. So we'll add that tomorrow. All right. Okay, everybody. Let's take a couple minutes here to see if there's any questions that come up. Please again, ask your questions, folks. There's no such thing as a wrong question. Okay. Chimpanzee, what's happening over there on YouTube? But ask your questions or let me know if you guys have any comments. Otherwise, I will see you guys tomorrow. Don't forget, for those of you that are interested, I do have an art membership group that I would love to see some of you on. I teach you how to draw. I teach you how to paint. We usually have at least a couple of adult painting themes, kind of elaborate themes that we do during the month, and a few other small ones. We have some technical tutorials where I teach you things about around shading or how to make skinny lines. It just depends. Blending, as in a background in the sky. I've got kids sessions in there and adult sessions in there. So you get a combination of things: kids sessions, adult sessions, and you learn how to draw and how to paint. If you guys are interested, the membership doors are closed at the moment. I will be opening them up for a short period in November, maybe about a week or so. They close back up and won't be opening up again until March. So for those of you that are interested, there is a link in the description of this video. There's an email list that you can add your name to. That way, when I have the dates and everything else, all the important information ready to go, you guys will be one of the first ones to find out. Okay. Also, if you haven't yet, please follow the Painting with Jesse page. I do these occasional open to the public events, so you guys can jump on those. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Rose, that's right. Sometimes you got to take a little break. Sherry Edwards, you got it. My pleasure. All right, all of you. I hope to see you back here tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have an awesome rest of the evening. Remember, tomorrow, 11 o'clock Pacific time, okay? 11 o'clock Pacific time. It is being recorded, so if you can't join in live, don't stress about it. But do try to get it done before the end of Sunday. Like I said, I'm probably going to extend it a couple of days, but not very much. All right? Okay. Thank you so much. Have an awesome day. Thank you again for joining me. Talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.